You're 17, on your knees in the backyard, wrestling a heavy chainsaw to drop a dead maple so your dad doesn't have to buy a cord of firewood. You save him about $300. 20 years into this trade, the timber doesn't sell by the cord. It sells by the section, thousands of acres at a time, and a single deal can be worth over $300 million. Between that backyard maple and a contract like that is a career almost nobody films, because most of the work has moved inside climate-controlled cabs while the danger stayed outside them. It kills more American workers than any other job in the country, and the money? It was never where you think it is. It isn't in the hands holding the saw. This is your life as a logger in America, every level of it, and where the real money is actually hiding. If you like seeing how real careers get built, like this video and subscribe to Levels Deep, a new one every week. You aren't earning a wage yet. This isn't a job, it's the prologue to one. You drive to the hardware store and buy a new steel chainsaw for $619.99. Back home, you mix the two-stroke fuel to a 50-to-1 ratio, fill the tank, and yank the pull cord until the engine catches. The dead maple leans toward your parents' fence, the one direction it can't fall. So you do the first thing every faller does. You read the lien. You clear an escape path at 45 degrees off the fall line and kick the brush out of the way. Your first cut is an open-faced notch on the side you want it to drop, the saw's gunning sights aimed at the empty lawn past the fence. Then you bore the felling cut into the back of the trunk and leave a narrow strip of uncut wood. That strip is the hinge, the single thing that controls the fall. First try, you cut the notch too shallow. The tree settles back and pinches your bar in the trunk. You drive a plastic wedge into the back cut with the flat of an axe, tapping until the lean reverses. With a groaning crack, the maple goes over, right where you aimed, clear of the fence. You limb the top, buck the trunk into 16-inch rounds, and split the pile with a Fisker's maul until your arms burn. You take a round file to the chain, 2 strokes a tooth, and stack a full-face cord against the shed. The firewood lot down the road charges about $300 for a cord like this. You stacked yours for a Saturday's work. Your family won't buy firewood again. None of this is a career yet, but dropping that first tree on purpose taught you something the firewood lot couldn't. An 80-foot trunk will obey a sliver of holding wood no wider than your thumb, if you cut it right. In the quiet after the fall, you decide you want to do this for money. The next step is your first real paycheck, on the lowest rung in the professional woods. The choker setter. This is the first rung that pays. The work starts at $19.82 an hour. The bottom 10% of this trade clear less than $35,230 a year, and on day one, that's you. Your alarm goes off before sunrise. You're on the logging site at 5:30 in the dark in Carhartts and a hard hat. Your first task is dragging limbs and treetops to the chipper until your arms go numb. The chipper roars and throws a fog of diesel and wet bark over the whole landing. But your real job is setting the choker, the steel cable that drags felled logs up to the deck. You wait for the skidder operator's signal, scramble down the muddy slope to a downed tree, wrap the cable around the butt end just behind the root flare, seat the bell, step clear, and give the thumbs up to pull the turnout. First time, you set the choker too low. Halfway up the skid road, the cable slips and the log tumbles back down. The operator has to reverse down the hill. He doesn't say a word, which is worse than being yelled at. You reset it, cinch tight behind the swell, where it holds. You learn fast that the woods don't give the same warning twice. One afternoon, a log rolls off the deck and the release cable whips taut across the exact patch of mud where you'd been standing. It could have cut you in half. You're already 3 steps clear because an old-timer had physically hauled you out of the bite of that cable earlier and told you to never stand inside its arc. You stop standing in the bite. A guy named Jacob Rogers runs a tree service called Guilty of Treason out of Enumclaw, Washington, and films the groundwork, the choker setting, the brush clearing, the low-rung reality. A kid can watch that now and understand the danger before ever setting foot on a landing. Your first check clears. The foreman starts using your name instead of pointing. Then one day the chipper goes quiet and you get handed something new. You're still the most junior guy on the crew, but you've proven you can survive out here. The next rung is the saw. The pay starts to look like a career. The BLS median for this role is $59,540 a year. It's also, by the numbers, the most dangerous job in the country. Across all industries, the on-the-job death rate is about 3.3 per 100,000. For loggers, it's around 110. You run a professional saw now, and your job is dropping 80-foot Douglas firs that lean the wrong way. Before you pull the cord, you clear the base and walk your escape path twice. You gun an open-faced notch toward the lay where you want it to land, bore the back of the trunk, and leave the hinge intact. You hammer wedges in behind the bar so the weight can't settle back and pinch you. You file the chain twice a day because a dull chain doesn't cut, it pushes, and a saw that pushes kicks back. Then comes the tree that tests whether you belong out here. A big fir leaning hard away from the only safe lay. A tree like that wants to barber chair, to split up the trunk mid-cut and slap backward off the stump before you're done. The barber chair has killed more fallers than almost anything in the woods. You don't make the straight back cut the lean is begging for. You bore in from the side, set the hinge from the inside out, and release the last strip of holding wood last, so the trunk never gets the chance to split before it commits. The hinge holds. The fir tips over clean, down the lay you planned. You don't run. You walk the escape path you cleared, because the fallers who run are the ones who trip and get caught. You learn another rule. Stop walking under hung-up trees, the ones snagged in another's branches on the way down. They're a bomb on a timer. You leave every one for the machines. The skill has a name and a price. It's the game of logging, a national training program, $250 a level, 4 levels of exactly this kind of life-saving technique, and the work is governed by OSHA 1910.266, the federal logging rule in force since 1995. It's why the chaps on your legs and the chain brake on your saw aren't optional. You pass all 4 levels. The cutting boss starts handing you the back leaners nobody else will touch. Then the world goes quiet again. You've become the best pair of hands in the woods. But the industry already decided its future doesn't belong to hands. It belongs to the machine. Level 4. The machine. The job stops being about your hands. It's about the machine. And the machine costs more than your house. A used Tiger Cat feller buncher runs around $268,000. A new one can hit $710,000. You sit in the climate-controlled cab behind reinforced glass, work 2 joysticks, and shear a standing tree clean off the stump without touching the ground. Then you climb into a John Deere skidder, about $108,000, to drag the stems to the landing. You back up to the bunched trees, drop the grapple, clamp a turn, raise the arch to lift them off the ground, drag them down the skid road, swing them onto the deck, and head back out empty. A Ponce harvester delimbs and cuts the stems to length. A cat loader sorts and loads the trucks. The test here isn't a tree, it's a slope. You take a full load across a side slope trail, and for a moment you misjudge the angle. The whole uphill track of a multi-ton machine lifts off the ground. It teeters, about to roll. You ease the grapple load downhill and feather the throttle until the machine settles back onto all four corners. One wrong move tips a $250,000 machine onto its roof with you inside, on ground a logger once crossed on foot. You learn to read the slope from your seat instead of climbing out to check, the same way you once read a tree's lean from the ground. Cody Baker, 27, runs equipment with his father at Baker Land and Cattle in Malvern, Arkansas, where the woods have become the family's main business over the cattle. One operator and a feller buncher today outproduces a 10-man crew from the 1970s. The deck fills with logs faster than the trucks can haul them. The cab is warm and safe. You've never been more productive, and you've never been more dependent on a loan book. The next rung is the truck, and the truck is where the wood finally turns into money. This is where raw wood becomes currency. The median pay is $57,440 a year. You need a CDL to sit in the seat, and a Peterbilt or Kenworth under you to do the job right. You back your empty trailer under the loader and hold it dead still while the operator decks 25 to 30 tons of logs onto the bunks. You throw the binders over the pile and ratchet them down tight, then walk the whole trailer, checking every strap before you roll. The mill is over the mountain, down a steep, winding grade on wet gravel, with a loaded trailer constantly trying to push you down faster than you can stop. At the top, you set the Jake brake and let the engine's compression hold the weight, instead of riding your service brakes all the way down. You reach the mill with brakes still cool and working. The scale house checks your load and waves you through. Your first month, you scale in one load over the legal weight and eat the ticket yourself. After that, you watch the loader build every load right to the line and not an inch over. And you stop tapping the brakes on the grade, because a driver who rides them down a mountain gets to the bottom with none left. Hauling a load pays about $240. The wood chained to your trailer is worth far more than that, and that gap is exactly why ambitious people in this trade eventually buy their own trucks. Tracy Harris runs an outfit called 44 Trucking out of South Georgia, hauling close to 1,000 loads a week for contract crews across Georgia and Florida. That's where trucking goes if you stop driving and start owning. The air brakes hiss as you park. You've got a choice: drive this truck the rest of your life, or start running the woods that fill it. You put down the tools and start running the chessboard. For a median of $57,320 a year, your new tools are flagging tape, a can of spray paint, a two-way radio, and the harvest map folded in your back pocket. Before a saw fires up, you walk the whole boundary of the site. You flag the property lines, mark the streams and buffer zones you can't cross, and lay out the skid roads in the landing. Then you brief the crew, set the day's targets, and the cutting starts. Your real skill now is sequencing, keeping the deck stocked so trucks never sit idle, while keeping the cutting far enough ahead of the skidders and loaders. And you start grading the wood as it comes in, which is where you finally see where the money's been hiding. A clean butt log, the first log off the base of a good tree, graded veneer, is worth $2,600 to $6,000 per 1,000 board feet. The top of that same tree goes to the pulp mill for $7 to $10 a ton. Same tree, and the spread between its two ends is the whole game. The test comes mid-morning. The main skidder blows a hydraulic line and stops. 3 loaded trucks are idling at the landing with a 4th on the way and nowhere to go. The operation is about to seize up, but you saw it coming. You swing the loader over to the cold deck, a backup pile you built the day before for exactly this, and the trucks keep rolling while the mechanic fixes the skidder. You stop reaching for a saw. Your hands are on the radio and the scale stick now. You're also the one enforcing the 2 tree-length spacing between fallers, the rule that keeps one man's tree off another man's back. Toby McDowell, who runs C, McDowell Logging in Butts County, Georgia, was named Georgia's Logger of the Year for 2025. He bought his first truck at 18, and he'll tell you he always said one day he'd be a logger. The trucks are rolling. You run the woods now, but you don't own them. The last rung belongs to the one who does. Level 7, the contractor. There's no salary on this rung. Success here isn't dollars an hour, it's the iron you own and the timber you control. You bid on stumpage, the right to cut standing trees, against other seasoned contractors. You finance a new feller buncher on a heavy loan note and negotiate haul rates and delivery quotas with the mills. And every Friday, you make payroll for your whole crew, whether the mill has paid you yet or not. The cutter's hands matter far less here than the terms your banker offers. This is a capital and risk job that happens to be done in logging boots. The cycle never stops. You cruise a stand to estimate its value, bid the stumpage, sign the contract, move your crew and equipment in, and run the wood to the mill as efficiently as you can. Then the test comes from a direction no chainsaw ever could. Your main mill cuts your delivery quota in half overnight. Your expensive iron sits idle in the woods, but the loan payments keep coming. Because you'd kept a relationship and a standing contract with the second, smaller mill, you pivot, shift 2 crews to haul there, and your note gets paid on time. You earn the Master Logger certification, the one landowners ask for by name, and after that, the timber sales start coming to you instead of you chasing them. You don't go out to the cutting site anymore. You haven't run a saw in years. And you notice the trade thinning out around you. The BLS counts only about 44,300 people in the whole profession. A Forest Resources Association survey of roughly 200 logging businesses found 31% expect to be out of business within 5 years, and 71% of the owners are already 50 or older. But you're still here, and the work is still yours. The very top of this world isn't a logger at all. It's the corporation that buys land by the section and sells the timber rights for $300 million. You don't own that ground, but you own the iron that cuts it, the trucks that haul it, and the crews that run it. Graham Van Dusen, who runs Van Dusen Timber Corp in Hallsville, Texas, and won 2025 Logging Business of the Year, puts it plainly. He's just a businessman who owns a logging business, and he's not getting up in a machine to run it. At dusk, the lot goes quiet, and you see where the money was the whole time. The most skilled job in the woods, the faller with the steady hands and the feel for the saw, is the lowest earner on the whole ladder. The money was never in the cutting. It moved to the trucks that haul the wood, then to the iron that harvests it, and finally to the deeds under the ground it grows on. The best cutters often never want to leave the saw, and the saw, by itself, never made anyone rich. But you left it. You climbed off the stump into the cab, out of the cab into the truck, out of the truck into the office where the loan notes and timber contracts get signed. The old still you bought for $619.99 and pull started in your dad's backyard still rides behind the seat of your pickup. These days, it sits next to a Tiger Cat feller buncher worth up to $710,000, and you own them both. Logging is still the deadliest job in the country. You knew men who walked into the woods one morning and didn't walk out. You did, every time, and you climbed higher than any of those mornings could reach. The top of the trade will always belong to the corporations that buy land by the section and sell it for hundreds of millions. You may never own that ground, but the iron is yours, free and clear. So are the crews, and so are the trucks. Somewhere in America right now, a 17-year-old is dropping a dead maple in his dad's backyard to save him about $300 a cord. He has no idea the saw in his hands is the cheapest, least powerful thing he'll ever own in this trade. Back in your office, the keys to every machine in the yard hang on a hook by the door. Every one of them is yours. If this was worth your time, like it and subscribe to Levels Deep. We break down how real careers actually get built, one every week.